The morning sun filtered through the transparent dome of the Galactic Military Academy's training facility. Cadets from dozens of different species moved through the corridors, their varied forms creating a tapestry of colors and shapes. Among them walked Alan Torres, a human from Earth, carrying his training gear with quiet confidence. Thex watched Alan from across the cafeteria, his Vraxian scales rippling with irritation. The large reptilian cadet had failed yesterday's tactical exam while Alan had scored perfectly. Again. He cannot be that good at everything, Thex muttered to his companions. Quiln, a Kelthran with feathered crests and sharp eyes, nodded in agreement. It makes no sense. We have trained our entire lives for military service. He has been here only 6 months. Sorav, the third member of their group, flexed his zephyrite tentacles thoughtfully. His species was known for their intelligence and problem-solving skills. Yet even he could not match Alan's performance in the simulation exercises. There must be something we do not see, Sorav said. Perhaps he cheats somehow. The 3 aliens had become friends through their shared frustration. They were not bad cadets. In fact, they ranked in the top 20% of their class. But Alan consistently ranked first. In physical endurance, tactical planning, weapons training, and even diplomatic scenarios, the human always seemed to excel. The endurance test is tomorrow, Thex said, his voice low. The instructors will have us run the full obstacle course in the heat. Quill's feathers ruffled with sudden interest. That is a difficult test. Even the strongest cadets struggle. What if we make it harder for him? Sorav suggested carefully. Nothing dangerous. Just something to slow him down. To make things fair. The other 2 leaned closer. Sorav continued, his voice barely a whisper. My biology studies include toxicology. There is a compound called Celtax. It causes mild dizziness and fatigue in most species. The effects last only a few hours. No permanent damage. That seems dishonest, Quiln said, though his tone suggested he was considering it. We would not harm him, Sorav insisted. Just give him a small disadvantage. Let him see what it feels like to struggle like the rest of us. Perhaps it will humble him. Thex's eyes gleamed. How would we administer it? The water stations along the obstacle course, Sorav explained. I could add it to 1 container. A few drops would be enough. He drinks more water than anyone during physical tests. The plan formed quickly after that. They told themselves it was harmless. Just a prank. A lesson in humility for the human who never seemed to fail at anything. That evening, Sorav obtained the Celtax from the medical laboratory where he worked as a student assistant. He mixed it carefully into a small vial, calculating the dose for what he thought would cause mild discomfort. Then, thinking of Alan's larger human size, he doubled it. Then, wanting to be certain it would work, he added even more. The next morning arrived hot and bright. The obstacle course stretched across 2 kilometers of rough terrain. Walls to climb, mud pits to cross, weighted packs to carry, and various challenges designed to test every cadet's limits. 140 cadets lined up at the starting point. Alan stood among them, stretching his legs and rolling his shoulders. He smiled and nodded at other cadets, friendly as always. This somehow made Thex feel worse about their plan. Is the water ready? Quiln whispered to Sorav. Station 3, Sorav confirmed. Right after the rope climb. That is where he usually drinks. The instructors gave their briefing. The cadets would run in groups of 10, spaced 5 minutes apart. Performance would be measured by time and technique. Alan was in the 3rd group. Thex, Quiln, and Sorav had volunteered to be observers along the course, supposedly to help cadets who fell or got injured. Their real purpose was to watch their plan unfold. They positioned themselves near Station 3, their communication devices ready. The first 2 groups passed through, many cadets stopping to drink gratefully from the water containers. None of them took from the spiked one. Sorav had marked it with a small scratch that only they would notice. Then Alan's group began. The human moved efficiently through the early obstacles. He climbed the rope wall with smooth, practiced movements. His group reached Station 3, panting and sweating in the heat. Alan grabbed the marked container. Thex's hearts began pounding faster. Quill's feathers went flat against his head with nervousness. Alan tilted his head back and drank deeply. Once, twice, 3 long swallows. He set down the container, wiped his mouth and kept running. Now we wait, Sorav whispered. They watched Alan continue through the course. He jumped over barriers. He crawled under wire obstacles. He carried the heavy pack up the steep hill. They kept waiting for him to stumble, to slow down, to show some sign of the toxin working. Nothing happened. Alan completed the entire course and crossed the finish line. The timer showed a new personal record. He was not even breathing as hard as the other cadets. Thex stared in disbelief. How? Maybe it takes longer to affect humans, Quiln suggested weakly. They watched Alan through the rest of the day. He attended classes. He ate lunch. He participated in afternoon weapons training. Not once did he show any sign of dizziness or fatigue. That evening, the three conspirators met in private. Sorav's tentacles were trembling. I do not understand. I used 3 times the normal dose. It should have affected him. It should have affected any biological system. What if humans are immune? Quiln asked. Impossible, Sorav said. Cell tax works on every known species. It interferes with inner ear function and blood oxygen distribution. Thex looked ill. What if we created a new strain somehow? What if we made something worse? The weight of what they had done suddenly felt very heavy. They had poisoned another cadet. What if the effects were delayed? What if Alan collapsed tomorrow or next week? What if their harmless prank turned into something terrible? We have to tell someone, Quiln said quietly. The other two nodded. They had wanted to teach Alan a lesson about humility. Instead, they were learning one themselves about the consequences of jealousy and poor choices. As they walked toward the instructor's office to confess, they passed the common room. Through the window they could see Alan sitting calmly, reading from a data pad. He looked perfectly healthy and completely unbothered. The 3 aliens stood frozen outside, staring at the human who had somehow survived their toxin without even noticing it. Whatever they thought they knew about humans, they were clearly very, very wrong. The instructor's office felt smaller than usual as Thex, Quiln, and Sorav stood before Commander Yalitha's desk. The Altherian instructor had 6 arms and eyes that seemed to see through deception. She had been reviewing cadet reports when they knocked on her door, asking for an urgent private meeting. Speak, Commander Yalith said, her voice firm but not unkind. Sorav stepped forward first. As the one who had obtained the toxin, he felt the most responsible. His tentacles curled nervously around each other. Commander, we have done something wrong. Something that could be dangerous. He paused, gathering courage. We poisoned Cadet Alan Torres. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Commander Yalitha's 6 arms went completely still. Explain. Now. The words tumbled out. Thex described their frustration with always losing to Alan. Quiln admitted they wanted to make him fail just once. Sorav explained about the cell tax toxin, how he had taken it from the medical lab, how he had tripled the dose to make sure it would work. But it did not work, Sorav finished miserably. He drank it hours ago. He should be dizzy and tired. Instead, he broke his personal record on the obstacle course. He has shown no symptoms at all. Commander Yalith stood abruptly, all 6 arms reaching for different communication devices at once. How much did you give him? Enough to affect a creature 3 times his size, Sorav said. I thought maybe humans were larger and needed more. But Commander, nothing happened. What if we accidentally created a resistant strain? What if it is building up in his system and will cause organ failure later? Within minutes the office filled with people. Medical Chief Torin arrived first, his Baltherian frame nearly filling the doorway. Head of Sciences Drella came next, her crystalline Shinari form glowing with concern. 2 security officers stood by the door. Where is Torres now? Medical Chief Torin demanded. Common room last we saw, Quiln said quietly. Bring him here. Medical wing actually. I want full scans immediately. The security officers left to find Alan. Commander Yalith turned back to the 3 cadets. You 3 will wait in the conference room. Do not speak to anyone. Do not leave. We will deal with your punishment after we ensure Torres survives your idiocy. They were escorted to a small conference room with transparent walls. Through them they could see the hallway. 20 agonizing minutes passed before they saw Alan walking calmly between the 2 security officers. He looked confused but not alarmed. What do you think they are telling him? Thex wondered aloud. The truth, Quiln said grimly. That we tried to poison him. Sorav could not sit still. His tentacles kept moving, wrapping and unwrapping around chair legs. I have studied biology for years. This makes no sense. Cell tax affects neurochemistry and oxygen distribution. Every species responds to it. Every single one in the database. Maybe humans are not in the database yet, Thex suggested. They only joined the Galactic Council 3 years ago. Through the window they watched medical staff rushing back and forth. Doctors carried scanning equipment into the medical wing. Scientists arrived with testing materials. The activity suggested something serious was happening. An hour crawled by. Then another. Quill's feathers had gone completely flat against his body, a sign of extreme stress in his species. Thex kept changing colors, his scales shifting from green to brown to gray. Sorav had tied his tentacles into knots. Finally, Commander Yalith returned. Behind her came Medical Chief Torin and Scientist Drella. Their expressions were unreadable. "Is he alive?" Sorav blurted out. "Please tell us we did not kill him." "Cadet Torres is perfectly fine," Medical Chief Torin said. The three aliens sagged with relief. "In fact, he is in better health than most cadets I examine. Strong cardiovascular system, excellent lung capacity, very efficient metabolism." "But how?" Sorav asked. "The toxin should have affected him." Scientist Drella stepped forward. Her crystalline body caught the light, creating small rainbows on the walls. "We ran extensive tests on Torres. Blood analysis, neural scans, cellular examination. We also analyzed the Celtax compound you used." She activated a holographic display. It showed molecular structures and biological charts. The Celtax compound works by interfering with the inner ear and reducing oxygen efficiency in the blood. It causes dizziness and fatigue in most known species. "So why not in humans?" Quiln asked. "Because human biology is remarkably different from what we expected," Drella explained. "First, their inner ear structure has redundant systems. Even if one pathway is disrupted, others compensate. Second, their blood has an unusually high capacity for oxygen binding." Medical Chief Torin added more. "We questioned Torres about his symptoms. He said he felt nothing unusual. Then we asked about his diet and habits. Do you know what he told us?" The three cadets shook their heads. "He said the water tasted slightly bitter like coffee. He drinks coffee every morning. Multiple cups. Coffee contains caffeine, a stimulant that is toxic to many species in the amounts humans consume." "But that is not all," Scientist Drella continued. "The Celtax you used is based on alkaloid compounds similar to those found in certain earth plants. Humans evolved eating plants that produce defensive toxins. Their livers developed enzymes specifically to break down these compounds." She changed the holographic display to show a human liver processing the toxin. "Torres metabolized your poison the same way he would process the capsaicin in hot peppers or the theobromine in chocolate. His body treated it as mild food rather than a dangerous toxin." Thex felt his jaw drop open. "You mean we poisoned him with something his body considers food?" "Essentially yes," Medical Chief Torin confirmed. "We tested his liver function and found elevated enzyme activity, but nothing concerning. He processed the entire dose in approximately 2 hours. By the time he finished the obstacle course, it was already leaving his system." Sorav's tentacles uncurled slightly. "So he will be fine? No delayed effects." "No delayed effects," Drella assured them. "In fact, Torres found the entire situation amusing once we explained it to him." "Amusing?" Quiln repeated weakly. Commander Yalith spoke for the first time since entering. "Yes, amusing. Though I assure you three will not find your punishment amusing. You obtained restricted substances without authorization. You deliberately contaminated a water supply. You attempted to sabotage a fellow cadet during an official assessment." All three cadets lowered their heads. "However," the commander continued, "you also confessed immediately when you feared you had caused harm. You showed concern for Torres's safety above your own consequences. That counts for something." Medical Chief Torin crossed his massive arms. "Torres is in the waiting room. You will apologize to him directly. Then you will write detailed reports about what you learned today. Not about punishment, but about the dangers of jealousy and the importance of understanding biological differences." As they were led toward the waiting room, Sorav felt his education had just expanded dramatically. He thought he understood biology. But clearly humans operated on principles he had never encountered before. Alan Torres had consumed enough poison to hospitalize 3 Vraxians, and he had simply run faster. The door opened and Alan sat there reading, looking completely unbothered by the fact that he had been poisoned just hours earlier. Alan looked up from his data pad as the door opened. He saw 3 very nervous-looking aliens enter the room, followed by Commander Yalith. The human cadet set down his reading material and stood politely. "Cadet Torres," Commander Yalith began, "these 3 have something to say to you." Thex stepped forward first, his large Vraxian frame somehow seeming small and apologetic. "Cadet Torres, I am deeply sorry. We put poison in your water during the obstacle course because we were jealous of your performance. It was dishonorable and wrong." Quiln spoke next, his feathers drooping. "We wanted you to fail just once. To see you struggle like we do. We did not think about the danger. We are very sorry. Sorav's tentacles remained tightly coiled. I obtained the toxin illegally from the medical laboratory. I calculated a dose 3 times stronger than normal. I could have killed you. There is no excuse for what I did. I am truly sorry. Alan blinked a few times, processing this information. Then, unexpectedly, he started laughing. Not a mean laugh, but one of genuine amusement. The 3 aliens exchanged confused glances. Wait, Alan said, holding up his hand. You are telling me that bitter taste in the water was poison? I thought the filtration system was broken or something. Medical Chief Torren stepped into the room. May I explain the situation to Torres? I think he deserves to understand the full scope of what happened. Commander Yalith nodded her approval. The medical chief activated a holographic display similar to the one the scientist had shown earlier. It showed molecular structures and biological diagrams. Torres, the compound they used is called Celtax. It causes dizziness, fatigue, and disorientation in most known species. The dose they gave you should have made you unable to complete the obstacle course. In fact, it should have sent you to the medical wing for treatment. Alan studied the molecular structure floating in the air. But I felt fine. Better than fine, actually. I ran my best time. Scientist Drella entered now, her crystalline form glowing softly. That is because of your evolutionary biology, Cadet Torres. May I ask you some questions about Earth? Of course, Alan said, sitting back down and gesturing for everyone to get comfortable. What plants grow on your home planet? Drella asked. Alan shrugged. All kinds. Trees, flowers, vegetables, fruits. Why? Do these plants have defenses against being eaten? Well, yeah, Alan said. Thorns, tough bark, bad taste. Some are poisonous. We teach children not to eat random plants because many will make you sick. Drella's glow brightened with excitement. Exactly. Your planet's plants evolved chemical defenses. Toxins, irritants, compounds designed to harm creatures that try to eat them. Now, what do humans eat? Alan thought for a moment. Plants mostly. Vegetables, fruits, grains. Also meat, but humans eat a lot of plant material. So your ancestors had to eat plants that were actively trying to poison them, Drella explained. Over millions of years, human bodies adapted. Your liver developed special enzymes. Your digestive system learned to handle compounds that would kill other species. She changed the holographic display to show a comparison. On one side was a Vraxian liver processing Celtax. It struggled, turned red with stress, and showed clear signs of being overwhelmed. On the other side was Alan's liver processing the same compound. It worked smoothly, breaking down the toxin efficiently and quickly. Your body treated their poison like food, Drella said with what sounded like admiration. Specifically like spicy food. Spicy food. Alan repeated. Medical Chief Torren brought up another image. Do you eat peppers, Torres? Sure, I love peppers. Hot sauce, jalapenos, that kind of thing. Those contain capsaicin, Torren explained. A compound that causes pain and burning sensations. Most species cannot consume it at all. It is classified as a defensive toxin in our databases. Yet humans eat it voluntarily and even enjoy it. Alan grinned. Yeah, there is something satisfying about spicy food. The heat, the flavor. Some people compete to eat the hottest peppers they can find. Sorav's tentacles loosened a bit in shock. You eat pain for enjoyment? Well, when you put it that way it sounds weird, Alan admitted. But yeah, I guess we do. Scientist Drella continued her explanation. The Celtax compound has a similar molecular structure to capsaicin and other alkaloids found in earth plants. When you drank it, your body recognized it as something familiar. Your liver enzymes broke it down just like they would break down the chemicals in peppers or certain bitter vegetables. Huh, Alan said thoughtfully. That actually explains why the water tasted like really bad coffee. Coffee is bitter too. Coffee. Medical Chief Torren exclaimed. You mentioned drinking coffee every morning. How much? 3 or 4 cups usually. Sometimes more if I have early training. Torren pulled up another analysis. Coffee contains caffeine. Do you know what caffeine does to most species? Alan shook his head. It causes rapid heart rate, anxiety, tremors, and in high doses, seizures. The amount you consume daily would hospitalize most cadets here. We classify it as a controlled stimulant. Alan's eyes widened. Really? I just drink it to wake up. It tastes good too. Quiln made a small chirping sound of disbelief. You consume multiple poisons every single day? I mean, I would not call them poisons, Alan said defensively. They are just normal foods. To you, Drella emphasized. To your biology they are normal. But you must understand, Torres, that humans have an unusually high tolerance for toxic compounds. Your species evolved on what we classify as a Class 4 death world. A death world? Alan asked. Commander Yalith spoke up. Earth is categorized as extremely dangerous by galactic standards. Violent weather, tectonic instability, aggressive predators, and plants that evolved powerful chemical defenses. Most species would struggle to survive there without significant technological support. Alan sat quietly for a moment, absorbing this information. Then he looked at Thex, Quiln and Sorav. The three aliens still looked miserable with guilt. So you tried to poison me with something my body thinks is food, Alan said slowly. And you feel terrible about it because you thought you might kill me. He started laughing again. That is actually kind of funny. You are not angry? Thex asked cautiously. I mean, trying to make me fail a test is not cool, Alan said seriously. That part bothers me. But the poison thing? How could you know? Earth biology is apparently weird. Sorav unwound another tentacle. We were jealous of your abilities. We wanted to humble you. Alan nodded. I get it. I win a lot. That probably gets annoying. He paused. But here is the thing. I'm not trying to make you look bad. I am just doing my best, same as you. Your best involves being immune to poison, Quiln pointed out. Apparently, Alan agreed with a smile. Look, I accept your apology. Just do not spike my water again, okay? Next time you want to compete, just challenge me directly. I would rather have honest competition than sabotage. The three aliens visibly relaxed. They had expected anger, maybe even demands for severe punishment. Instead, the human was being reasonable and even friendly about nearly being poisoned. I do have one question though, Alan said to scientist Drella. If humans can handle these toxins, what should I actually avoid eating around here? Commander Yalith decided that the incident required a broader educational response. The next morning, she called a special assembly for all cadets in Alan's training group. 140 young beings from dozens of species filled the main lecture hall, curious about the sudden mandatory session. Thex, Quiln and Sorav sat in the front row as ordered. Alan sat nearby looking relaxed and curious. The other cadets whispered among themselves, wondering what was happening. Commander Yalith stood at the podium, her 6 arms clasped formally. Yesterday, an incident occurred that revealed a dangerous gap in our cross-species education. 3 cadets attempted to sabotage another using a toxic compound. Their plan failed completely due to biological differences they did not understand. A murmur ran through the crowd. Several cadets glanced at Alan, then at the 3 aliens in the front row. Rather than simply punish those involved, we will use this as a teaching opportunity, the commander continued. Scientist Drella will explain why understanding biological diversity is crucial for military cooperation. Drella moved to the center of the room, her crystalline body projecting holographic images for all to see. How many of you have shared meals with Cadet Torres? About 20 hands, tentacles, and appendages rose. Did you notice anything unusual about his food choices? A Kelthran cadet in the back spoke up. He puts red sauce on everything. It smells like burning chemicals. Several other cadets nodded agreement. Another voice called out, he drinks that black liquid that smells bitter. Yeah, and he eats the brown squares from Earth, someone else added. They smell sweet but made my friend sick when he tried one. Drella gestured and the holographic display changed to show various Earth foods. Hot sauce containing capsaicin. Coffee containing caffeine. Chocolate containing theobromine. All of these are classified as toxic compounds in our medical databases. Yet humans consume them regularly, sometimes daily, with no ill effects. The lecture hall filled with surprised sounds. Many cadets turned to stare at Alan, who smiled and waved awkwardly. Let me be clear, Drella continued. These are not mildly uncomfortable substances. They are genuine toxins that cause measurable harm to most species. A single cup of Torres's coffee would send many of you to medical care. The peppers he enjoys would cause severe pain and digestive distress. The chocolate he snacks on contains compounds that could kill some species. A small furry cadet raised her paw nervously. Why do humans eat poison? They do not think of it as poison, Drella explained. To understand why, we must discuss planetary classification. Earth is rated as a Class 4 death world. The hologram changed to show Earth from space. It looked beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents, white clouds swirling across the surface. Death world? Another cadet asked. It looks peaceful. Medical Chief Torin stepped forward to join Drella. Appearances deceive. Let me describe Earth's environment. Tectonic plates constantly shift, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Weather systems generate storms with winds strong enough to destroy structures. Temperature ranges from freezing cold to extreme heat. Ocean currents can change entire climate patterns. The hologram zoomed in to show various scenes. Hurricanes swirled over oceans. Lightning struck during massive thunderstorms. Earthquakes cracked the ground. Volcanoes erupted with brilliant orange lava. Everything on Earth evolved to survive in these harsh conditions, Torin continued. The plants developed chemical defenses because they could not run from herbivores. They created toxins, irritants, and compounds designed to harm anything that tried to eat them. Drella took over again. Now imagine you are an early human ancestor. You need to eat plants to survive, but the plants are poisonous. What do? Find different plants? Someone suggested. There are no safe plants, Drella said. Everything has some level of chemical defense. So human ancestors had two choices: starve or adapt. The hologram showed human evolution, bodies changing over millions of years. Humans developed remarkable livers. Organs specifically designed to filter and break down toxic compounds. They developed digestive systems that could handle irritants. Over time, they became able to eat plants that would kill most other creatures. Alan raised his hand. Can I add something? Commander Yalith nodded permission. Alan stood and faced his fellow cadets. I never thought of Earth as dangerous. It is just home. But I guess there are things we do that seem normal to us and weird to everyone else. Like drinking poison for fun? Thex muttered, though not unkindly. Yeah, like that, Alan agreed with a smile. Coffee wakes me up in the morning. I like the taste. Hot peppers make food more interesting. Chocolate is a treat. I never thought about them being harmful because they have never hurt me. He pulled a small container from his pocket. This is my hot sauce. I put it on almost everything. Want to see what it smells like? He opened the container. Immediately, several cadets in the front rows recoiled. One Zephyrite student's tentacles curled protectively. A Baltherian cadet's eyes watered. That is a weapon, someone gasped. Alan laughed and closed the container quickly. Sorry? I forget how sensitive some of you are to smells. This is mild by human standards. My sister eats sauce twice as hot. Quill's feathers ruffled. You have different levels of poison sauce? We call them heat levels, Alan explained. Some people build up tolerance over time. They start with mild peppers and work up to extremely hot ones. There are competitions to see who can eat the hottest pepper. The lecture hall erupted in shocked chattering. The idea of deliberately consuming increasing amounts of poison for sport seemed insane to most species present. Scientist Drella restored order. This illustrates an important point. What is dangerous to one species may be harmless or even enjoyable to another. The reverse is also true. Torres, what foods here have made you sick? Alan thought for a moment. The blue fruit from the Altherian gardens upset my stomach. And I cannot eat the Vraxian protein bars at all. They taste metallic and give me headaches. Both contain minerals and compounds that are nutritious for those species but difficult for human biology to process, Drella confirmed. This is why we have separate food preparation areas and why dietary consultations are mandatory for new species joining the Academy. Commander Yalith stepped forward again. The lesson here is simple. Never assume your biology is universal. Never assume something safe for you is safe for others. And never, under any circumstances, attempt to use biological substances to harm or sabotage fellow cadets. She looked directly at Thex, Quiln, and Sorav. These three made a serious mistake. They tried to use a toxin against Torres without understanding his biology. Their prank was doomed from the start because they assumed all species respond the same way. They are fortunate Torres is forgiving and that no real harm occurred. Torin added, we will be implementing mandatory cross-species biology courses for all cadets. You will learn about different species' vulnerabilities, tolerances, and dietary needs. This knowledge could save lives during joint operations. Alan raised his hand again. Can I make a suggestion? Speak, Commander Yalith said. Maybe we could have cultural food-sharing events? Under medical supervision, obviously. People could try small, safe amounts of food from different worlds. It might help us understand each other better. Drella's crystalline form brightened with enthusiasm. That is an excellent idea, Torres. Controlled exposure in educational settings could reduce future incidents. As the assembly ended, cadets filed out discussing what they had learned. Many looked at Alan with new respect and a bit of wariness. The human who could drink poison and call it coffee was clearly more resilient than anyone had realized. 3 days after the assembly, Thex approached Alan in the cafeteria. The large Vraxian cadet carried his meal tray carefully, his scales showing a nervous pattern of shifting colors. Alan sat alone at a corner table, reading from his data pad while eating lunch. "May I sit?" Thex asked quietly. Alan looked up and smiled. "Sure, go ahead." Thex settled his bulk onto the reinforced chair designed for larger species. For a long moment he just stared at his food. Finally he spoke. "I have been thinking about what happened. About why I did it." "Yeah," Alan said, setting down his data pad to give Thex his full attention. "I told myself it was about fairness. That you needed to understand struggle. But really I was just jealous." Thex's scales darkened with shame. "You make everything look easy. It made me feel inadequate." Alan nodded slowly. "I get that. But you know what? Things are not as easy for me as they look." "How can that be true? You score highest in every assessment." "Because I work really hard," Alan explained. "I study twice as long as most cadets. I practice in the gym every evening. I review my tactical simulations until I understand every mistake. You see the results, but you do not see the hours of effort." Thex absorbed this. "I never considered that. Also," Alan continued, "there are things I struggle with that come easy to you. Like temperature regulation. You Vraxians can handle heat that would kill me. Or navigation. Quill species can sense magnetic fields naturally. I have to use instruments for that. Everyone has different strengths." Before Thex could respond, Quiln and Sorav arrived at the table. They stood awkwardly, holding their meal trays. "We wanted to apologize again," Quiln said. "Properly this time. Not just because we were ordered to, but because we genuinely regret our actions. The incident made me realize how dangerous ignorance can be," Sorav added, his tentacles coiling and uncoiling. "I study biology, but I knew nothing about human biology. I made assumptions that could have been fatal." Alan gestured to the empty seats. "Sit down, all of you. Let's talk like actual friends instead of people who tried to poison each other." The 3 aliens sat, visibly relieved. They began eating their meals together, the conversation gradually becoming less tense. Alan asked about their home worlds. They asked about Earth. Stories were exchanged, and slowly, genuine curiosity replaced the awkwardness. "You mentioned wanting to do a food-sharing event," Sorav said eventually. "Were you serious about that?" "Absolutely," Alan said. "I think it would be educational. And fun if done safely. Would you be willing to start with us?" Quiln asked. "As a way for us to learn and maybe make up for what we did?" Alan considered this. "Let me check with Medical Chief Torin first. Make sure we do it properly." 2 days later, they gathered in a small medical observation room. Torin had approved the experiment under his direct supervision. Alan had brought a selection of common Earth foods, all carefully chosen to be mild by human standards but interesting for alien biology. "Remember," Torin said firmly, "tiny amounts only. We do not know how your systems will react." Alan laid out his selections on the table. A bar of milk chocolate. A bottle of hot sauce. A container of black coffee. A small bowl of salted peanuts. And a few pieces of candied ginger. "Let us start with something simple," Alan suggested, breaking off a small piece of chocolate. "This is milk chocolate. It is considered a sweet treat on Earth. Children eat it regularly." He divided the piece into 3 tiny portions and handed them out. Thex, Quiln, and Sorav each took their piece cautiously. "Just a small taste," Torin reminded them. "Let it dissolve in your mouth." All 3 aliens placed the chocolate on their tongues. For a moment nothing happened. Then Quill's feathers stood straight up. Sorav's tentacles began vibrating. Thex's scales flushed bright orange. "Sweet," Quiln managed to say. "Extremely sweet. But also bitter? And something else. Rich. Heavy?" "My mouth feels coated," Sorav said, his tentacles still trembling. "Is this what pleasure feels like for humans? It is overwhelming." Thex was breathing rapidly. "I can feel my heart beating faster. Is that normal?" Torin checked his medical scanner. "The theobromine is entering your systems. Heart rate elevation is expected but manageable at this dose. How do you feel?" "Strange," Thex admitted. "Not bad exactly. Just intense." Alan grinned. That was the mild one. Chocolate is usually given to children because it is considered safe and gentle. The 3 aliens stared at him in disbelief. "What about the coffee?" Quiln asked, eyeing the dark liquid nervously. "Maybe we should wait on that one," Torin suggested. "Let the chocolate metabolize first." They tried the peanuts next. These were less dramatic but still caused reactions. The salt content made Sorav's species uncomfortable. Quiln found the texture disturbing. Thex actually enjoyed them but could only eat 2 before feeling full. After 20 minutes, Torin cleared them to try the coffee. Alan poured tiny amounts into 3 small cups. Just a sip. This has caffeine, which is a strong stimulant. Sorav went first. He touched the liquid to his mouth and immediately recoiled. Bitter. Incredibly bitter. How do you drink this? I add cream and sugar, Alan admitted. Pure black coffee is an acquired taste even for humans. Quiln tried next and made a sound like a distressed bird. It burns my tongue. Not with heat but with the taste. This is considered a morning beverage? Millions of humans drink it every day, Alan confirmed. Some drink several cups. Thex took his sip and his scales went through a rapid color change from green to yellow to orange. I feel alert. Very alert. Too alert. My thoughts are moving too fast. Torin scanned him again. Elevated neural activity. Increased heart rate. This is normal for caffeine exposure. It will pass in a few hours. Hours? Thex repeated. This feeling lasts for hours? That is why we drink it in the morning, Alan explained. It helps us wake up and stay focused. Finally they reached the hot sauce. Alan had brought the mildest version he owned, something he would give to children. This is the real test. Just touch a tiny drop to your tongue. Seriously, a tiny drop. He demonstrated, placing a small amount on his finger and licking it off. See? No problem. Sorav copied the motion, touching just the smallest amount to his tentacle and transferring it to his mouth. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. His entire body turned bright purple. All his tentacles shot straight out. He made a high-pitched whistle of distress. Water, he gasped. I need water. Torin quickly handed him a container. Sorav drank desperately. Burning. Everything is burning. How is this food? Alan looked apologetic. I am sorry, I thought this was the mild one. Quiln and Thex decided not to try the hot sauce after watching Sorav's reaction. The Zephyrite gradually recovered, his color returning to normal, though he kept drinking water. You eat this voluntarily, Sorav said in wonder. On purpose. For enjoyment. Some people put it on every meal, Alan said. Your species is insane, Quiln declared, though his tone was more admiring than critical. As the session ended and they cleaned up, something had changed between the 4 cadets. The awkwardness was gone. In its place was genuine friendship built on understanding and shared experience. They walked together to the common room afterward. Alan carried his regular afternoon coffee, a large cup filled with the dark liquid. He drank from it casually as they talked. The 3 aliens watched him with expressions of fascinated horror. How much is in that cup? Thex asked. About 300 milliliters, Alan said. Sorav's tentacles curled. That would hospitalize me. That is my 3rd cup today, Alan admitted. All 3 aliens stopped walking and stared at him. 3rd. Quiln repeated weakly. Sometimes I have 4 or 5 if it is a busy day, Alan said cheerfully. They stood in the corridor, watching their human friend drink poison like it was water, and finally understood just how different human biology truly was. But instead of being jealous or frustrated, they felt something new. Respect, curiosity, and genuine friendship with someone whose very existence challenged everything they thought they knew about survival. Alan finished his coffee and smiled at his friends. Want to study together for tomorrow's exam? The 3 aliens exchanged glances and followed him, shaking their heads in amazement at the human who drank toxins and called it a normal day.